I'm here inside our carriage house, and we're going to spend a few minutes talking about the history of this carriage house and carriage houses in general. So carriage house is about what the name implies. It's a building used for housing carriages, particularly around the turn of the century. Typically, a carriage house would have sliding doors for the carriage to go in and out, sometimes stalls for horses, and oftentimes a hay loft for hay for the horses as well. So sounds a lot like a barn, and in fact when we first moved to the property we used to call this the barn until we understood a little more about the property itself. So a carriage house is different from a barn in a couple different ways. One, a barn tends to face out into the pasture, whereas a carriage house would face the road, because the carriage house's purpose is to aid in transportation. Carriage house also tends to be very close to the road for the same purpose. And generally speaking, when you see a carriage house, it's going to have architectural features that really don't belong on a barn. So it may appear to the road to be closer to a house than a barn. And actually sometimes, particularly in the Northeast, architectural features that were prominent on the house were featured on the carriage house as well. So that's Rockfish Gap Road, originally a trail, later a dirt road, and now a paved road, and they've moved that road back a bit. So actually the road used to be a lot closer to this building. You can't see it, but there's a stone wall there that's been there for many years, and we actually heard stories of somebody's father used to sit on that wall and get excited when he'd see a car come through. Not like that now, we get plenty of traffic. As you come through and you see, this is the front of the carriage house, again facing the road. I talked about those architectural features. You may remember when we saw the main house over there, the columns. So don't belong on a barn, more typical of a residence, and again tied to the columns on the main house. And this property actually made extensive use of columns throughout the property, and we called them on the label as well. If you take a look at your bottle of carriage house that hopefully you're getting ready to drink, you'll see on the 7, you'll see those columns situated prominently there as well. So let's go on in the carriage house and drink some wine.